Virginia, New York, and New Jersey affected by the floods and fires these past 2 weeks. Creator, sustainer, Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, watch over your creation. Give us hearts compelled to action and wallets to give to others who are in need. Thank you for this Rotary community that heeds your wise words to feed the hungry and give clean water to the thirsty. Thank you for inspiring us to bless our children with books to read and scholarships for further education. Bless our new leadership teams, and bless the hands of the drift that prepared and served our food. May the blessings of the prophets, the sages, our Creator, and our Lord Jesus Christ be with us all as we continue to seek peace. And the people of God said, Amen.
Now for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. So we're going to bypass on the Rotary Minute today. We'll go ahead and have our Sergeant of Arms, Kaylin Beecham, come forward, and I know that she's going to penalize me for $5 for saying Miss Linda Paul. So I've already got some running money with Autumn over there. Kaylin.
This is the time of our meeting, as I've said before, when the Rotary four-way test does not apply, and all the money we raise today goes to our scholarship funds. I do want to, I'm going to be the bearer of good news today and report that our friend and co-Rotarian Patty Beth Anderson had a good report from the doctors last week, and she's clear for 6 months. Rotary year, and our coffers need to be built up somewhat. The money we raise, I said, goes for our scholarship fund, and we need to be helping those students, so everybody get out $1 today.
That's fine.
It's a new year.
Except Dick Seibel.
No, I already paid this one.
It's double.
Our Rotarian of the day is Phyllis Hudecki. Phyllis?
I just have one message: vote. Vote in every election, local, state, and national. Do you know that Oklahoma has the lowest voter participation rate in the country? We're not that dumb, people. We can do better. Vote. All right.
Our caterer today, as Linda mentioned, is the Drifts. Yay! Thank you so much. Our guest for today is Kyle Hilbert, who's here with Josh West. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us today. Daniel Webster, who is the General Manager for NEOC, Northeast Oklahoma Cooperative. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us today. David Poindexter is here with Barbara Barnes. Thank you, David, for joining us today. Jeff McSweeney is here with Nicole Reynolds. Jeff, good to have you here. And Pam Cheney is here with Charlie Wallace. Pam, thank you for joining us. So now we'll go to the Rotarian announcements. So for those of you who have any announcements, please make your way to the podium.
I get to go first. On your tables is an invitation to our first meet and greet happy hour. It's July 31st at Speedy's Chop House. It'll be bring your friends, your wife, anybody you think might be interested, but Serena will be there. Anxious to hear your ideas. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Betty. As you know, last week, we took up a little fund, a little offering for our cousin district down in South Texas at Bernie, District 5840. Their members are really working around the clock, helping the flood victims, helping them clean homes and cook and everything else that they can think of. So I just wanted to report back to you on the results of that donation. So I'm really excited to tell you that we're sending $830 to our cousin district down in South Texas. And if anybody wants to pitch in some more, that's not too late. But how proud of Grove Rotary that I'm sure they'll be shocked to get money from northeastern Oklahoma.
Hi, everybody. I'm Charlie Wallace. I'm your co-chair of your catering committee. Our committee basically contracts with various caterers. One of our duties every week is we give our caterers a set number of how many meals to prepare. And of course, that's a little bit of guesswork, but one of the reasons it's important is it helps keep our budget under control. I need to talk to you about something that's been happening lately, and I think it's because I think we have some new members that maybe don't know policy. And so, as a kind of a housekeeping note, we do not normally offer to-go meals. What we saw last week, basically we ended up running out of food for some of the people at the end because we had 16 to-go meals, and I don't think people realize that that's not really normal. I think some people may think that, well, I'm a paying member, so I'm entitled to it whether I attend or not, but that's not really the policy. The policy as it stands now is that you need to attend in order to get your meal. Now, if you're an attending Rotarian, we do have an exception. If at the end of the meal, if you've waited till everybody's gone through and we're maybe at least a quarter past the hour and there's plenty of food left over, then you can approach a caterer and ask for a to-go box. If you get one, then you are required to pay $15 for your meal to the treasurer sitting over there. So I know that doesn't sound like a very friendly announcement, but that is our policy. It's also why our dues are only $58 a month. If every Rotarian showed up every single week and ate every single meal, we would have to raise dues to cover all those. So if you have any questions, please come ask me. Karen Walters is my co-chair, but I usually play the heavy on these kind of things.
Our program today is legislative session being presented by Josh West. It's my pleasure to introduce Josh. Josh was elected to the Oklahoma House of Representatives in November of 2016, where he represents District 5. Since elected, Josh has served in various roles to include Chairman of the Committee on Military and Veterans Affairs, Assistant Majority Floor Leader, Chairman of the Committee on Tourism, Majority Leader. Josh has served in House leadership since 2018, and in November of 2024, he was named the Majority Floor Leader for the Oklahoma House of Representatives. As the Majority Floor Leader, he and his Floor Leader team are in charge of assigning bills to committees, publishing legislation to the floor agenda, and the overall day-to-day operations on the floor proceedings in the House of Representatives. In addition to his duties as Majority Floor Leader, Josh serves as a House legislative member on the Oklahoma Strategic Military Planning Commission, and he is the chairman of the GRDA Joint Legislative Task Force. Josh, this is the sad part. Josh will reach his 12-year term limit in 2028. Josh and his wife Elizabeth live in Grove, and we all know and love Elizabeth as well as she's a fellow Rotarian. Their 4 children, Ethan, Walker, Katie, and Aubrey. Elizabeth is a licensed professional, as we all know, counselor, and owns her company, West Counseling and Strategy. Ethan is a recent graduate of the Grove High School and is an incoming freshman at Oklahoma State University. Caleb, Christy.
$5. $25.
I've got it rolled over there. Walker is a senior at Grove High School, Katie a 7th grader at Grove Middle School, and Aubrey is a 5th grader at Grove Upper Elementary. I know that you will find his presentation both informative and engaging. Please join me in welcoming Josh West.
His floor leader pose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I am wearing shorts. This is so my predecessor and good friend Dr. Cox, great statesman. His final 4 or 5 years in office, him and Jeff Hickman. Jeff Hickman was the Speaker of the House up until 2016. They started. Jeff Hickman had his Oklahoma had a place in Woodard Holler across from Cox's Dock, and so they were roommates in Oklahoma City, and down here together. So they started something, Cox's last 5 years, where they would bring up legislative members in the area, kind of showcase the area. So it's the Grand Lake Legislative Family Weekend. We've done it. This is my 9th year to do it, and it's kind of crazy. It goes by so quick. Before I kind of get into what we're going to do, I'm going to give a brief synopsis of session and some of the changes. We had a leadership change this year, and then we'll just open it up for questions. Any question? There's not a question I have not heard that I wouldn't expect to hear. It doesn't matter the topic. We'll answer any question. But I want to bring up a good friend of mine. We came in the class of 2016 together. Dear friend, his wife Alexis and 2 daughters, we love him, and he's the new Speaker of the House. So Kyle Hilbert, he's from Depew, Oklahoma, and like I said, we will answer any question. But welcome him to Grand Lake. So yeah, I'm wearing shorts, and this tonight always starts. The kids off, and they pay their way, so it's not your tax dollars aren't paying for our representatives and senators to come here. But we wanted to showcase, or Cox did years ago, and so it's open to all House members, all Senate members, their families, and all the stuff we do is catered towards the family. We want people to come up here, and it's just growing every year, and it's something that we always look forward to. I don't have too many left. As Sarita mentioned, came in 16, 28 is my last. I will term out in November 28. We do have term limits, 12-year term limits, and so, and you can't go to different chambers. It's 12 years total, so you can stay in the House for 12 years. Some people will flip, halfway through or whatever and try to go to the Senate, but I've always wanted to stay in the House. I mean, the House is, it's more my personality. It's kind of the trailer park up there, and it's the Senate's kind of, the Senate it's very, not that I'm knocking on the senators. We have a good relationship with the Senate, but it gets kind of, they love that title, and it's kind of boring. And so I've always enjoyed being in the House, and we have great peers. I mean, you don't go up there and serve with these members and not develop personal relationships with them. It's been a great time, and lifelong friendships. My wife is not here today. We had on Tuesday or Monday, Katie had oral surgery, and Walker had a major reconstructive surgery on his elbow, and so she was going to bring Katie some pain meds at the house. She's, as you mentioned, she is a Rotarian, and best thing about my campaign when I have one is she's out there for him, but does a great job here in the community, and I know that she enjoys participating here. But we just finished, so this is the first of the 60th, right? So we came in the 56th, and it was a crazy, crazy time. I talked to you probably 2017 after that first session, and it was just, we had terrible budget failures, and as freshman Republicans, it kind of sucked. I mean, we had to make some tough votes that weren't always fun as a Republican. And so to see where we are now compared to 2016, I just think that every year we've gotten a lot better, especially with the budget. We're still able to do tax cuts and things like that as well, but we're in a lot better position. I think what hurt us when we came in, they cut the base too low, and I don't like taxes either, but people expect services for the tax dollars as well. And so we got to some spots where it wasn't always fun, and so when the last few years when we did these tax cuts, they're targeted, and there's protections set in place where we don't get in those troubles that we were in. But I'll bring up Kyle over here. So like I mentioned, he's class of 2016 with me. He was sworn in January, actually officially as a speaker. We had the caucus vote in November. And this was a 2-year process. I mean, Kyle and I had a conversation in December of 22. Is that when it was? At the apartment, yeah. So we all stayed in there, but we pay for our apartments, but it's a mile and a half from the Capitol, and it's not fancy. It's gated, but it's chain link fencing, and it's a lot of reps, and there's Section 8 and some medical residents, and so. But it's really close to the Capitol. But we sit in, I've been in the same apartment my whole time, and it's about 500 square foot, and enough for a bed and a couch and a little bit of a kitchenette. And so, but we were sitting in there, and we said, hey, let's talk about, we're obviously friends and classmates, and let's talk about moving forward, what we want to do. So we kind of not cut a deal, but we made an agreement. Let's see who's got the best shot for speaker, and Kyle had the best shot. And so moving forward, we took a 2-year campaign, and and he's the now Speaker of the House. So, as I mentioned, dear friend of mine, I'll let him say a few words, and then we'll just kind of get into just a brief synopsis of session, really quick. And then, like I said, any question, it does not matter what the topic is, we will answer it. So, come on up here, Kyle.
Thanks, Josh, and good to be here. Always good to be in a microphone and be the least dressed person in a room, too. Like Josh said, we're going to be on a boat later and everything, so dress for the boat ride. But so good to be up here again in Grove and at Grand Lake, and see a lot of familiar faces in the room I've gotten the pleasure of knowing over the past 10 years. Josh and I were talking about this in the food line. He announced 10 years ago this month when he first campaigned. And you keep talking about term limiting in 3 years. You do have one more term you got to get elected to, so we got to make sure we take care of that. A little detail in 2026 first. But Josh and I and our families too have grown really close over the years. And talk about, it was mentioned earlier in his intro, him being the majority floor leader, that really is an incredibly important position, and what that does for the Speaker of the House, myself, is it makes sure everyone, instead of being mad at me, they get mad at him, which is a great thing for me. So when a bill goes through the process, you introduce a bill, it gets assigned to a committee. And that is important. You want to make sure your bill goes to a good committee. That runs through the floor leader team. So Josh, as the floor leader, gets to decide where the bills go to a committee. Then you got to get the committee chair to hear your bill. The committee chair or chairwoman agrees to hear the bill. The committee's got to pass it. Well, then it goes to the second committee, the oversight committee or the full appropriations committee, where you got to get the chairman to hear it. You got to get the committee to pass it. Well, then the next step, you got to get the floor leader to schedule it for a hearing on the House floor. So every bill has to go through Josh and his floor leader team. So it's an incredibly important task. And so when we're in session, the hours and hours and the thought and everything that goes beyond that is incredibly important. Then after it gets scheduled, you have to actually get the bill to pass. That's important as well. You need 51 votes. But another important thing that he worked on and that we worked on this session, so going back into our caucus retreat in December of 2024, as we were getting ready for the upcoming session at the time, I stood up before the caucus and pitched an idea. I said, look, we've had a lot of mental health problems in the state of Oklahoma, and we know we have to come up with a long-term plan for mental health. But I know I'm not the expert on mental health, and I don't think it would be wise for us to just jump in and start making mental health policy right out of the gate. Let's spend the next year, develop a policy for 2026. We'll do what we have to do, put out fires where necessary on mental health, but we're probably not going to talk about it much in 2025. Joke's on me, right? But we're going to make a plan in 2026. Well, lo and behold, we had a series of issues, and where you even had the governor for the state of Oklahoma and the attorney general for the state of Oklahoma, who don't agree on a whole lot, both agreed on a consent decree that the legislature entered into on how we were treating the forensic population and those individuals awaiting adjudication in our criminal justice system and awaiting competency or competency restoration. And so we started down that path, and then as we started asking additional questions about where funds had gone, we were getting different answers from the Department of Mental Health in private meetings with their leadership than the Senate was getting, which was different answers than the governor was getting. And then we were complaining about it at a press conference to talk about this as well as issues with the forestry department. And the governor's chief of staff came to see me upset and saying, hey, that's not true, this is what we're being told. And I said, well, respectfully, we're being told two different things. And so we took a step that had not happened in our 9 years in office, and we appointed a select committee, which Josh served on, to investigate the Department of Mental Health. Now, it's not uncommon for legislators to call agency directors to come and testify, but we took the additional step of requiring those that were testifying on our committee to go under oath, because we knew that what we had been told, somebody was not telling the truth at some step in the process. And throughout those hearings, it became clear that the problems that had existed in the Department of Mental Health only continued to get worse. And it culminated in the state of Oklahoma and in Josh West running the bill on the House floor to do something the state of Oklahoma has only done twice in the state's history, and we hadn't done it since 1913. The legislature only once prior to this session had ever fired an appointed agency head. In 1913, the legislature fired the state printer. I don't know what the state printer did. But apparently he was printing some things he shouldn't have been printing. And the legislature was not happy, so they fired the guy. But he is the greatest state printer we've ever had. It was the one time, we did it for 2 years, never had one since. But all jokes aside, we needed to go in a new direction, and so it was for Leader West and Senator Rosino to take that on, to run that piece of legislation. you're going to open yourself up to criticism as well when you do that. But we needed a change in leadership, and I will applaud the governor. He's appointed Admiral Slavonic to come in the interim and run the agency, and that's exactly what the agency needed, was somebody to bring some stability, leadership, and somebody that we could trust. And we have that with the Admiral, and that's going to help as we move the ship forward. But now back on what I pitched at Caucus Retreat about waiting until 2026, this is where I will pitch to you all to give us advice. That plan still holds. We want to come into the 2026 session and put together a long-term plan for where we want to go in the state of Oklahoma. We talk about the ODOT 8-year plan for roads and bridges all the time, how they changed 20 years ago, the legislature, how ODOT funds were distributed. Instead of distributing funds and building roads and bridges based off political need, to distribute roads and bridge fund money off of actual need. And so that's what we want to do in mental health as well, but it is more challenging, right? Because when you're building roads and bridges, you know how much concrete costs, and you either poured it or you didn't. In mental health, there's a lot of qualitative metrics as well as quantitative, and so we want input. We don't want this to be a Tulsa plan, we don't want it to be an Oklahoma City plan, we want it to be an all of Oklahoma plan. And so if you have ideas on mental health and how to make the mental health system better, please let Josh know, because that's something we're going to continue to work on next session. But all that said, I know I've only talked about mental health, but we really did have a great session. We got a lot of good things done. There was a statute on the books going back to, I think, the 1940s that required a mandatory 6% markup on your groceries and your gas. So that was a really big issue for this part of the state. Representative Bayshore, district is next door to here, ran that because a lot of businesses in his area were talking about the fact that that law is not on the books in the other 3 states in the region, and so it's a competitive disadvantage when there's a mandatory markup. And also, in Oklahoma, we believe in capitalism, and so you as the owner of a business should be able to determine what price you want to set your goods at, not the state of Oklahoma tell you what the price is. So that's really exciting legislation that came out. Tort reform and lawsuit reform was another big piece. We wanted to do something to put good safeguards in place so that if a business does have a tort, if they perform wrongdoing, that somebody can still file a lawsuit. But at the same time, some of these nuclear verdicts that you're seeing around the country are kind of growing out of control. So trying to put some guardrails around that. Because what happens is, even if you as a business owner or you as a consumer never are doing business with a business who experiences one of those nuclear verdicts with a really, really high payout, it ends up making everybody's insurance costs go up. And so we all as a state end up paying for those attorney's fees and those nuclear verdicts. So trying to put some guardrails around that. And then there's a lot of utility and energy policy this session. I break our tenure up into 2 halves. So the first 4 or 5 years we were in office, nobody talked about utility policy, ever. And then Winter Storm Uri happened. And now, it's kind of like Facebook, there's always the latest thing that came up, and now all of a sudden you read Facebook comment sections, which you shouldn't do, speaking about mental health. It's not good for your mental health. But if you read them, suddenly everybody's an expert. Everybody knows everything about whatever the topic is. That was utilities at the state capitol. All of a sudden, all 149 legislators were experts on utility policy. But it has been a big part of the conversation of how do we prepare for another winter storm, should that ever happen again, but also make sure the exorbitant costs that we paid don't happen. And so it's like I said, I don't know if we're supposed to be having as much fun as we've been having, but we have been having a lot of fun. And I'll leave with this, and then happy to take questions. And I'm sure Josh will make me take any of the hard questions since y'all are his constituents. But really, the thing that I've been hammering home to all of our legislators, and Josh knows what I'm about to say, is one word that I want us to focus on: the word better. Because I think as a state, as a society, we're always going to have problems. We're always going to have issues with Department of Human Services. You're always going to have challenges in education. You're always going to have challenges in infrastructure. You can never fix everything. But if you focus on, can we make this issue that we're working on today, can we make it better tomorrow than it was yesterday? And my hope is that when we're done serving as floor leader and speaker, that we can look back and say the state of Oklahoma and our legislative districts are better than they were when we started, and that's the hope. So just good to be with you guys this afternoon here in Grove. Thanks, Josh.
So absolutely, Kyle's a great speaker, as you know, and sometimes it sucks following him, but no, this is a really good guy. I'm gonna say what, you never, when you go watch a forum or you got a debate or a bill on the floor, there's no one that's prepared as Kyle. He's gonna show up prepared, so that's one thing that makes him a great speaker. One thing that made him a great speaker too, before he was a speaker, he was also the vice chair of Appropriations and Budget. He was Appropriations and Budget's vice chair, and so You know, at the time, Kevin Wallace was the chair, and Kevin, you know, was that your freshman year, your second year of a freshman year? So yeah, you know, 2018, he was the vice chair of a major agency or a major committee, and Kevin Wallace just gave the reins, and so there's probably no one in that through the executive branch or in the Senate that knows the budget better than Kyle. So that helps. It definitely helps the House. We always have a leg up on the governor in the Senate, we feel like. But just some key legislation around here. So since 2018, I started working on something for GRDA. I mean, obviously GRDA has a huge footprint in my district. Don't always agree on everything with GRDA, but they are an asset to the district. You know, in the 40s when they were developed back with the electrification of the country here, you know, that brought a lot to rural Oklahoma. Would the state in 2025 own a power company? Probably not. But we do, and we're not going to ever sell it. It would be in court for years and years and years, and you may get a lot of money for it, but you never would see it. It would be in courts. And so just producing energy. So I started working on this in 2018, and some pieces of legislation, you know, if it's worth the salt, then you're going to put your time in it, you have some skin in the game. And so finally this year we got it ran through, and it allowed GRDA to build 2 new energy producing natural gas generation units, so a 650 megawatt natural gas generation unit and a 450 megawatt natural gas generation unit, and also refurbished the Salina pump station. It's one of the 3 in the country. And so that was a big lift here, and I can't tell you how many times I ran the bill originally in 2018, and I had to take this portion out of the bill. And so every year we kept working on it, We couldn't get to the Senate, and so finally we got all the parties together and got it through, and so that's going to be big. And then Highway 59, so for years and years and years, you know, Rick Littlefield told me that it's going to be a 4-lane road, you know, back in the 80s, and so I would go to the Department of Transportation, and they'd be like, Wes, there's nothing on the books that ever said that this was going to be a 4-lane, and so 3 years ago, talking to Secretary Gatz at the time, he's the director of Department of Transportation, you know, he said, that's a Super 2, Wes, and our roads are not safe in Oklahoma, we have no shoulders on the roads, and so, you know, the Super 2, so there'll be some turning lanes in there. And I said, well, just come up to my district and have a public meeting. So we met at my wife's conference room down the road here. And, you know, I said, there's going to be people from, you know, Grove and Jay there. They're really interested in this. And they've been told you know, for the last 40 years, too, that it's going to be a 4-lane. I said, they're not going to scream and cuss at you. Just let's talk to them, show them the plan of what it is. And so, you know, they brought in their engineers and they laid it all out. And it was a Super 2. And so I said, well, what numbers are you basing this off of? Because, you know, in the summertime, 4th of July, you cannot make a left turn in this town. You cannot, it's not safe just because of the traffic. And they said, well, their traffic study was from 2010. And I said, well, just do one thing, commit to doing a traffic study. And so January of 23, they came in, they said, all right, the Secretary Gatz said, hey, we're going to do a traffic study. Well, I think he thought, we'll do it in January, because there's no traffic. Well, it exceeded the benchmarks, right? So that set it in where he's like, hey, he met me soon after that in our budget oversight committee hearings in January, and he said, hey, we're going to get to 4 lanes, it's going to take a little more time, we're going to have to re-engineer it and do some things, but and then I began working with, you know, it was a huge cost. You know, originally the Super 2 was like a $15.9 million project. It's a lot, you know. Johnny Reed Hill, you know, by the little grocery store at the bottom of the hill, that's a very, very dangerous, you know, wreck. I can't tell how many wrecks have been there. They're going to take down that hill. But it's an extensive project, just the Super 2. And so it went from $15.9 million to like $36 million, and the final number on that is about $60 million for everything. We are going to get it. Cherokee Nation was a big help. They footed half the bill. I went, you know, Chief Hoskin and I, we certainly don't agree on a lot of things, but we have a great relationship, and Brian Warner, he's a dear friend of mine, but, you know, we started talking about what can we do together, you know, 2 different governments to collaborate together, and so that will be let sometime this fall. It was supposed to be let in March, so that means they're going to bid the job out, and they were going to start work this fall. It got pushed back a little bit because the Cherokee Nation, it's federal monies, and there was a pushback on some of that. Not a pushback, but some of that was held up. So they'll let this fall, and then next year they'll begin working that. So hopefully before I get out of office, and I'm not saying I'm in. Heck, anybody can lose. Anybody can lose. I got one more election. And I've always told everybody, if I'm not supposed to be there, I will not be there. I know that, you know, God's got a plan for me, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So whether I'm here or not, that road's going to be done. Also, another project will be from the 4-way stoplight. You know, as soon as you pass the old police station, where it goes down to a 2-lane road. So all the way out past Bryant's, the old Bryant's, that will be a Super 5 as well. So that's 2 different projects right there. That's 2 different projects right there. One's state money, one's federal monies. and that will start next fiscal year as well. And so that's a major, that'll be great for the industrial park. Right now, it's hard for a semi-truck to make a left turn, and also this intersection by the school here, we've had students die, they're gonna get a stoplight put there, and so, I'm always, anytime I can get, $75 million in infrastructure for the district, I'm not gonna scream about it, so that'll be good for the area. It'll be good for the industrial park, and it will be safer. I mean, the Department of Transportation is not they're not an economic development agency, they're a safety agency, they're a road agency, but it will also help both sides. And so, session itself was a great session. Honestly, Kyle mentioned we had the leadership change. We implemented a two-tier committee structure, so every bill that's filed, it goes to a policy committee, and it goes to an oversight committee. And I don't see, there's a lot of people, lobbyists on the outside of the building that were worried about, oh my gosh, because they got to work. They're going to work their bills harder. And, there was agency heads that didn't know how it was going to work. I mean, our thought process was it's not a bad thing to have more eyes on legislation to ensure that, when you pass a piece of legislation, that in 2 years you're not going to have to come back and run trailer bills. I mean, that's a big part right now. I can't tell you how many bills that, have been ran over the past 9 years that we've been in where, you didn't have it all right, and you're going back year after year and trying to fix it. And so that allows more, it is tougher to get a bill passed, but that's not a bad thing. So, Kyle mentioned the, assignments of the bills and all that, and that was the easy part. The hardest part was before that is, with a new class coming in November, we do a new member orientation and assigning dadgum parking spots and offices. You got a bunch of, 20, 30, 40, 56-year-old 8th graders, and everybody wants a window office and a parking spot in a horseshoe. And the furthest parking spot from the front door is about 50 yards. So there's not a bad parking spot in that parking lot. But everybody wants to be close to the building and they want a window office. And so that was the worst part of being a floor that was doing that prior. But like I said, always, I don't take it for granted that we're up there and your tax dollars pay for everything we do. That's been a huge learning curve. If you look at me, I'm still the same guy. I'm still aggressive and militant at times, but you learn how to handle things different. I haven't headbutted any members since Mike Ritz in 2018, and I would do that again. He was a fraud. He lied. But no, you learn to handle things different, and every year is a learning year. And we do have term limits, and so you get put in positions way earlier than you did back when Rick was in, and even Cox. Cox came in during term limits as well, but. It's just you take it. If you ever turn down a position, and you take it, and you fake the funk till you get, learn how to do it, and you move forward. But it has been an honor. I look at my kids, my daughters right now. I really see it with them because the boys were 7 and 8 when we got elected. Of course, Ethan's going to OSU. That's crazy. It's tough on Beth, the first one, to leave the house, and he's going to OSU. We've had OU season tickets for 20-some years, and so. But that's good. We're excited for him. Walker's a senior, but my daughters, Aubrey was 9 months old in July of 2015 when I started campaigning, and Katie was 2. And so now they have brawls and they cry every day. And, so and they just turn into little pretty girls. I hate it, honestly, but you really see it in your kids. It has been an honor. If I didn't have a wife that supported me through this, I couldn't do it. I've always told her and my kids, hey, if you do not want me up there, then just say the works. It's not worth risking, my family over this thing. And over $47,000 a year job. It's just not. So, but it's a small fraternity, and I've enjoyed it. The good times and the bad times, and the relationships that you make, absolutely make it worth it. And like I said, I could sit up here, we could talk for as long as we want, but we're going to open up to questions. Like I said, I don't care what the topic is. Any questions? I'll start with you, sir.
Question for Kyle, or Mr. Speaker, I guess I should say. Oklahoma's always 48th, 49th, or 50th in so many things. So in your mind, what could we, if we started today, what could we be best in? What could we be first in? What could Oklahoma do that no one else can do? Something that you have to start, 10-year project or whatever. What's in your mind as the best thing in the United States where Oklahoma could lead?
Sure, that's a great question. I mean, one area where we're in a great position is aerospace. I mean, we have so many assets. Aerospace is now the #2 industry in the state of Oklahoma. That's happened within the past 8 years. And so really leaning into that as a strength, where I know growth, you all have some aerospace jobs here in town as well. I know in Bristow, I live in a community of less than 5,000 people. There are 3 aerospace companies in Bristow, and there's going to be a 4th in the next couple of years. I mean, and so when you have those companies, what I've seen in Bristow, as an example, is those companies, they actually help each other because you create a hub. And I remember I went to the Paris Air Show Actually, it was the Farnborough Air Show near London, England. And my wife was 6 months pregnant. I don't recommend going to London when your wife's 6 months pregnant, because she told me she was going to name our kid London if something happened and our baby was born while I was over there. But while I was there, one of the people who worked for one of those companies said, we have all these kids who are working for Lowe's in Tulsa, and they grew up in Bristow. He's like, there's nothing wrong with working at Lowe's, stocking shelves. That's great. We need people to do that. But they're working a job when they could have a career in the aerospace industry, a really cool job right here in Bristow, and they don't even realize it. And I said, Ethan, you're talking about my little brother. And so I went home and told my little brother, I said, you need to apply. There's 3 companies. Pick one of them and apply, because you're driving and selling paint in Tulsa when you could have a career. And he did, and he's loved it. It's the one time my little brother's ever listened to me in his entire life, so hopefully he can learn. But I tell that anecdotal story as an example of something where we can continue to lean into that. We have a spaceport out in Burns Flat. The potential there is incredible. And that's really what it is right now. And so what the legislators in that area have been working to do, and the officials there, is to try to get some anchor industries. Because the problem is, once you get, it's getting that first business and then that second business. But once you have 2, then others start to pop up around it. And really leaning into not just aerospace, but also space. We have a unique advantage as well in Oklahoma in a person, and that is Jim Bridenstine, the former NASA administrator, was congressman in Tulsa, still lives in Oklahoma and still loves Oklahoma. It was fascinating being at the air show, walking around with Jim Bridenstine. He could get a meeting with anybody, right? Because anybody wants a meeting with the former NASA administrator. So I think aerospace and space is leaning into our strengths. But on the flip side, where we are 49th, 48th, 50th in the country, we need to talk about how do we get better? How do we get to 40th? Because making gains from 50th to 40th is probably a lot easier than going from 10th to 1st on something else. And forever, I would go to conferences, and it is interesting going to talk to our colleagues across the country. They're all told by their various education associations how they're 49th in the country. Everybody agreed that Mississippi was 50th, but everybody was told back. So we all said, thank God for Mississippi. But over the past decade, Mississippi, people are called the Mississippi Miracle. They've invested in changing the trajectory. And so now Mississippi's not there as the 50th anymore. And so now what we don't want to have happen is everybody's going around saying, thank God for Oklahoma. So what can we do to really drive the needle in education? And get better outcomes. And so that's what we've been focusing on this session, at least in the House, was how can we recruit and retain more quality teachers, because that is what drives better education outcomes, is a high quality educator. And we all know it, we've all had that experience in our life where we had a really good teacher who changed our life for the better. And one good teacher can change somebody to have a desire for a lifelong of learning, and that passion for learning they develop because of a good educator can lead to them breaking generations of generational cycles of poverty, incarceration, you name it. And so we need to invest in good teachers. And so we focused on that, but also making sure we have good quality time in front of those teachers. I can talk on and on about all that, but I think leaning into aerospace, but we also got to make sure we're not becoming Mississippi in education.
I remember having conversations with Mr. Till, Mike Till. He was go to church with Mr. Till. He was my 7th grade math teacher. Most of my life he has known me, and I remember after the 2018, after that part of session there, we passed a teacher pay raise and did some things. I was doing a show in Oklahoma City called Your Vote Counts with Scott Mitchell and Jason Dunnington. And Scott asked me, he said, hey, you guys have passed the largest teacher pay raise since House Bill 1017 in 1991. Or 91, 92, and he said, why do we still have so many, emergency certified teachers? And some of my best teachers, honestly, were emergency certified teachers, not knocking them, but I was talking to Mr. Till, he said, back when you were a kid, Josh, said I could take you out of daggone, with a stick out in the dirt, and I could teach you math. He said, now, you can't teach, you can't just teach, you gotta be a teacher and a nurse and a therapist and a parent, because a lot of that's the reality that we deal with, and so, and there's not just federal mandates, there's state mandates and things like that. And so we've tried to, you're never going to get it, it's very toxic. Education issues are very toxic in the media, and they're toxic in general on social media. And I've always been proud to be from rural Oklahoma. Coach Dotson was my coach in high school, and I go to church with half, the Tills and the Stennetts, and so many of those people had, a big part to do with my upbringing. And I've always been proud of where I come from. And so I don't know if you're ever fully going to get it right. And then we've made big advancements, especially towards pay and things like that. But we're always looking to improve and use other states. Look at examples that they're doing too. And so some may disagree. It's like I said, it's a toxic subject. I think everybody has an opinion on it because at some point everybody went through some sort of education. So and at this level, your tax dollars pay for everything as well. And so it's It's never black and white. Nothing up there, honestly, is black and white. If it were to be very easy, most things you do up there, it's gray, and you got to spend a lot of time digging into the issues. And so, but as you mentioned, Brighton Design, I mean, that's what a great asset for the state. You know, out here we've got with the rides, you know, they're making satellites for Amazon. I set up 2 years ago, I started meeting there with Pinnell and some of the people in the Department of Commerce, and when that contract finally went through, I mean, that's a big contract. That's a lot of high-paying jobs out here. And, you know, between Horizon and Fair and all the other, you know, there's some of the smaller companies out there that all kind of work together. And so, we're never going to fully get it right. We're going to do the best we can. And when I leave, you know, hopefully it's in a better spot. And you know, I don't think anybody wakes up, you know, goes to work up there at the Capitol and wants to do bad. For the most part, everybody wants to do a good job. And you do fail. I mean, I make mistakes all the time. The thing is to learn from them. I mean, I remember in the military, every leader that I've ever had in the military, I learned something from them, whether it was, you know, how to be a leader or how not to be a leader. And so it's kind of a way to take it up there as well. Charlie, I don't know what time it is, too. I didn't bring my watch. What time is it, Tom? Okay, we got 10 minutes, all right.
Questions about Medicaid and how it affects our local hospitals. As you know, the recent federal budget is slashing Medicaid a little bit, and there's a concern about how it's going to affect, since our local rural hospitals have to obviously serve those patients. What are we doing at the state level to deal with it?
Well, these are big conversations. I mean, Jonas Rabel's a good friend of mine, and he's at the Capitol often with, you know, not just Integris, but, you know, the different hospital associations. And, you know, we knew back, you know, when the expansion passed on the ballot, before we got there for years, you know, the legislature they didn't take the expansion. And their fears were that the federal government could change the rules on it, right? So it's a 90-10 match. Now it's your tax dollars too. So that's one issue that took when it did pass, with STIP wanting to, you know, use managed care, right? So give an out-of-state insurance company $2 billion and let them manage that when we have Sooner Care in the state, which operates at a 4% overhead, right? So we already have a vehicle in place. Sooner Care is Medicaid. And so the expanded population was the working poor, essentially. So Medicaid was meant to be for the blind, disabled, you know, children and single parents. The fourth leg was essentially working poor. And so they're usually a healthier population. So we knew that it was going to be cheaper that population was to serve. And so with Medicaid through Sooner Care, like I said, it was a 4% overhead. When when STIP wanted to do, which we ended up, he got what he wanted, but we ended up using out-of-state insurance companies. Well, that was a 15% cost to that. So the 10% you're already on the hook for, you know, we get $2 billion essentially. We have to pay 10% back. And then it added an additional 15% on top of that. And so those are some of the issues we knew this year. I think for every percentage that's changed with Medicaid from the federal government, what is it, $1 billion? What's the final number on that? It's a big change. And so we started kind of hearing about that at the end of session. Trey Caldwell is the AMB chair, our colleague from down in north, from Cache, down southwest. These are conversations that we're having. If it does happen, you know, we've been in contact. Last November, we went up and sent our federal delegation. So we met with Langford, Mullen, Cole, Bice, Josh. Who else? We met with all of them. So we met Mark Wayne. So these are the issues that, you know, we're kind of at the helm of the federal government. If they make the cuts, then we got to figure out how to backfill it. And you know, as I mentioned before, and I've said it many times when I've spoken here, I'm always proud of the fact that we're a functioning government. We have no choice but to figure it out because we can't print money out. And so you got what you got. And so you don't make these benchmarks. And luckily, like I said, you know, since that first session of Colonize, we've been on a great trajectory. It's kind of leveled off, but we're still in good shape. But you still, you know, you never know. You have to prepare. We have a great savings account. The government likes to talk about the $5 billion in savings, and we do. And so we have for Colonize, it's not that big of a deal. We'll survive. And if the economy just dumped tomorrow, we're going to be all right. We've got enough, you know, put back. My thing is that whoever replaces me, I don't want to leave them the pile of junk that I was put in because of the budget, because they will, you know, the price of oil and everything else. We were in bad shape, and so I don't have an answer for you directly right now, Charlie, because I don't know. If they do make the cuts, it's a large cost, and we're going to have to backfill. Or they're going to have to look at the Medicaid program itself, especially with the expanded population, and see, you know, how do we address that?
My worry is whether or not rural hospitals will end up closing.
Well, it could. That's a huge issue. You know, Grove, Oklahoma here, we're lucky that we have a great hospital, Integris here. Yeah. If we didn't have this, you're going to Tulsa or Joplin or Fayetteville, or, you know, you're driving a few hours. And so that's always a big topic. Like I said, Jonas is in contact with us. You know, Kyle knows Jonas well too. Jonas does a great job advocating, and when I'm not an expert on Medicaid or Medicare or healthcare, but, you know, Dr. Cox still gets a lot of calls from me, and I do, you know, Jonas is a subject matter expert on this stuff. I do keep in contact with him several, you know, times throughout the session. If I got questions on a piece of legislation, because sometimes legislation may be, you know, concerning healthcare may be great for hospitals in Oklahoma City or Oklahoma County or Tulsa County, but not so good here. And so you kind of got to weigh out, you know, a lot of times the issues up there, they're not even, you know, R versus D, they are rural versus urban. And so that's, you know, there's not a perfect piece of legislation, but that's something we're going to keep an eye on. And if they do decide to cut, you know, that match, we've heard it could be, you know, right now it's 90-10, it could be 60-40 at some point. Well, that's a big cost with the current system the way it is, with the people, number of people that are on Medicaid. So it'll be something we'll address. Yes, ma'am. Did you have something?
Me?
Or you just raised your hand for Dr.
No,
Cox?
I couldn't help here looking over me. I was just going to say, first of all, thanks for always mentioning my brother. He loved his job at the Capitol.
He was a great one.
I'm looking at a recent, because I get the notifications about a Democratic caucus that passed a resolution about how we're treating immigrants. And I'm appalled by what we see in the nation, how we're treating ICE officials. So are we having a problem in Oklahoma? How's that affecting Oklahoma? Or is there
What, Munson put out something about the Oklahoma Democratic Caucus, or what?
a resolution for the humane treatment of immigrants?
Well, that's probably federal, because we're not in session. So a resolution, anyway, if it was done in session, a resolution is just a resolution. It's just a statement. You know, it has no binding authority. It's not a bill. So I haven't seen that. I would assume right now, if you're reading it, it's coming. It's something from the federal delegation that put
I
out.
haven't heard that we're mistreating immigrants or that we're having a problem with ICE
If we are,
raids.
I mean, it's not been brought to my attention. I mean, obviously we live in a rural part of the state, and you know, agriculture is a big part of the state, and so are there, you know, people working here illegally? Probably. I mean, I would assume, like most rural spots, but I haven't heard, you know, the mistreating of ICE like you're talking about. And I haven't read the resolution. That's what I'm saying. I'm assuming it's federal. Yes, ma'am.
Real quick, I'd love your input, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Pat about this, but Ryan Walters' latest directive that all schools have to provide a free lunch, and all I'm thinking is, how on earth is our school going to afford that when I know our funding has already been cut? So what is your take on that? What can you do to help? What can we do to help?
I'm surprised that it's taking this long for that. So I figured it's going to come out. So my relationship with Walters has been difficult at times, and it's not because I dislike the guy. You know, I think politics, it's wearing me out that it's become so WWF. I'm a coach with that. But it's fake, right? So, I mean, you don't have, my biggest issues, the change that's happened since we've been there is, you know, like I mentioned, we're not the federal government. But people, it's a WWF world, and people know they can go on, put out a video every single day, or they can make a statement, and people are going to get tore up, and they're going to go, you know, there's no such thing as bad publicity for Ryan or anybody else who's making these statements. They're going to get the attention they want. And so I think my issue probably, and I've mentioned, it's not anything I haven't said to his face, I promise you, but my biggest...
Or an email.
Or an email, yeah. My biggest issue is that maybe it's the way I was raised. Like I said, I'm militant at times, and we're from a tough part of the country, and it's very difficult for me to relate to Ryan. You know, he's got soft hands, he wears skinny little pants, and that's my issue. And I told him, I said, I take him to the Drake's Cafe or the J-Way, and I said, those old farmers at the round table will whoop your butt, Ryan. I said, and so, you know, so what he did, he put out a statement that said, all schools have to provide free lunches, you know, to the students. We're not opposed to that. We passed legislation a couple of years ago. It wasn't for all students, but it added more students onto it, qualified for it. But he doesn't, you know, the state superintendent does not pass laws. The governor doesn't pass laws. The, you know, lieutenant governor doesn't pass laws. And so he can make whatever statement he wants, but we're not in session. You know, there's a bill that passed our first year from Mayor Fricks, and it was, you know, you're not going to pass laws with education without funding behind it. And so, but that wasn't a law, that was just a statement. So, you know, I think it was more just fluff. It got a lot of attention from it. But what it did do was hurt. You know, I was talking to Coach, and some of my soups around it, there's, you know, 13 school districts in my house district, and I communicate with those superintendents directly all the time. And so the biggest thing it did create was when that was put out, you know, the parents that are on free reduced lunches have to fill out that paperwork to the federal government every year. Well, they didn't fill it out. So that's funding that's not going to be in the schools, right? And so I'm not opposed to what he wants to do, but you can't do it without funding behind it. And so, and it's like, it's not, he can't do that anyway. You can't just, you know, make a statement as the state superintendent and I mean, he don't pass along, we pass along.
But he did make the statement.
He did, absolutely.
So here's my dilemma.
I get it, I've talked to Coach, I promise you, I've talked to him, the first one I
I
talked to.
wasn't gonna bring it up because I don't want to compel you or me to use the F word in front of all these people.
Freedom's a great word.
Right. So, I spent the last week and a half since the statement came out trying to find a way to do it. We have 808 students that are called full paid. So full paid means they don't qualify for free or reduced lunch. All right, so an average of $3.25 a meal, over 2,000 something a day times 167 days is over $400,000. Now, I don't believe every kid's going to eat a school lunch every day, so the number will be less than that. So I've been working on a plan with child nutrition at the State Department. Of course, they got the notification the exact same way we did. I've never been notified yet. I've seen a social media post and I saw a letter that was sent to parents. Nothing has been sent to the schools. But he doesn't have standing of law, but he has set out a message, and now what do I do when a kid comes to school and says, I don't have to pay? So now I am compelled, and I visit with the board, it's not public yet, but I guess it'll be public when I tell you, we're gonna pay for all the meals. Now, it's gonna come out of, I'm gonna have to pull $250,000 probably is more realistic out of our general fund to pay for it. At the same time, I know we're estimating losing about $240,000 worth of title money that we're losing. So I'm looking at $500,000 I got to come up with no additional funding.
Well, I talked to Dick Lowe's, I called the Education AB chair, they're in communications right now. I don't know, Coach. I mean, it's like I said, if we were in session, it's a lot easier.
But that's my biggest problem.
And I get it.
Why didn't he go to you guys in?
Because he won't, Coach, because he knows that.
Because you guys would have passed, you would have done something to provide.
Absolutely, we could have worked on that and addressed that, but like I said, he made a statement, and the last time that I had an issue with Walters, I defended a veteran that he came out against, and he said that I was just part of the woke whatever, and I wanted porn in schools and whatever. And so my daughter says, my 9-year-old at the time says, Dad, what's porn? Because our friends were talking about it. So I called the governor. I said, let me tell you something, Governor. I know you're going to see Walters. Tell him to come up with a different comeback. Because I have to have a conversation with my daughter about porn, my 9-year-old daughter, then it's not going to be good. And I said, that ain't a threat. I said, this is what it is. If he would have said that to anybody but me, and walk out and defend yourself, because that's not how the real world is. And so it's not that I'm supporting anything the guy said about that. It's just right now we're not in session. I don't know how we're going to address it, Coach. And I mean, he can't do what he did. There's no law, and there's the appropriations for 2026.
He can't compel us to do it, but now he's put it out there. So now I feel
indirectly it's going to affect you, because parents are going to expect that because they think that it's
we're going to do what's called Provision 2 from the USDA. We're going to take the hit, but we're going to do it. It's not.
Well, I would imagine, Coach, that's going to be a part of next session about looking for an appropriation to do that.
We're going to do it just because we feel it's the right thing to do to feed our kids.
I get it. I'm 100%. And like I said, we're not opposed to it. We tried to do it a few years ago, at least increase the amount. But I know that Sabrina's trying to get me out of here. Hey, any questions? You guys, like I said, I always appreciate being, from District 5 from Oklahoma, because y'all know me. Most of you got cell phones. If you got problems, you got questions, you're going to contact me directly, whether you agree or disagree with me. And that's a good thing. You always got to get a good feel. I always have a good peg on the district. So thank you for having us. We want to be here. We want to come back and answer questions, or if you got anything, please do contact me. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to serve, and we don't take it for granted. So thanks for having us.
Didn't want to cut him short, but he said something about boat time or something, so. Next week's program is Club Day, and we will be voting on the budget, so please be there. We will need enough for a quorum. Final announcements, thank you to the Drift. They're already gone, but that was a wonderful meal as always. And then thank you to all of our guests that were here today. We do appreciate your attendance very much, and please come back and be a Rotarian with this wonderful club. Chairs and tables, please pick everything up. So with that, if you will stand, and we'll adjourn with the four-way test. In all the things we think, say, or do, is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship?
partnerships will be beneficial to all concerned.
And is it fun?
Is it fun?